How idyllic. Don't you just want to go lie on that boat in this beautiful summer day, lounging on Kunming Lake? We are, of course, in the Summer Palace of Beijing, the Summer Palace of the Qing emperors. Oh, and did they build a beautiful summer palace. This beautiful resort area, not far from the Forbidden City of China, was the favored resort area for the emperors of the Qing dynasty. That is from 1644 until 1910. And this was a place where the emperors would come for rest, for prayer, for enjoying the magnificent architecture of buildings designed from splendid sites all over China, to going to the temple, the pagoda of Buddha's incense that is just behind me on the hill, and just above it, the Sea of Wisdom temple, this magnificent place for imperial rest and relaxation. Well, this place was built by the Qing emperors, but the history of this place has in so many glorious sites of China, of course, has a much longer history. This big lake was a much smaller water body, hundreds of years before the Qing dynasty, but it was already being used as a vital storage site, a water reservoir for the city of Beijing, for the royal residences of Beijing, because Beijing was a capital first of the Jin dynasty around 1,000 years ago. It was the capital for the Yuan dynasty of the Mongol rulers. When the Ming dynasty first conquered China and pushed the Mongols out of China, they moved the capital to the southern capital, to Nanjing. But soon after, roughly 40 years later, the emperor of the Ming, Emperor Yongle, moved the capital to the northern capital, to Beijing. And this place nearby remained an important water reservoir. And the Ming emperors over time came to enjoy the beauty of this place, and one by one built temples or places of rest or small places for temporary residence. So this was a place that was a strategic water point and a point for visits already back even before the Yuan dynasty. And during the Ming dynasty, step by step being built. But it was really the Qing emperors who arrived on the scene from Manchuria, because the Qing Empire is a Manchu-led empire by the peoples of the northeast of China, who came, conquered in 1644, and ruled China until 1910. And it is the Qing emperors who decided to make this place truly the Summer Palace. And in fact, the Summer Palace is indelibly associated with one of the Qing emperors, one of the great Qing emperors, and one of the Qing emperors that had a decisive role in Chinese history, but also in world history. And that is the Emperor Qianlong, who ruled during most of the 18th century. His rule was 60 years, from 1735, when he became emperor at the age of 24, until 1795, when he stepped down and abdicated in favor of his son at the age of 84. And he did that in honor of his grandfather, because his grandfather, the Ming Emperor, had ruled for 61 years. And in honor of his grandfather, Qianlong said early on, "I will not rule as long as my esteemed grandfather, who ruled for 61 years. So he took the decision already early on to abdicate if he would be emperor for 60 years, and indeed he was. And it is Emperor Qianlong who dramatically expanded the water here by building this giant man-made lake known as Kunming Lake, the lake which covers 3/4 of the area of the Summer Palace, and man-made islands. And as a great traveler in China during his 60 years of rule, as a great connoisseur of Chinese art and architecture and tradition, he wanted to bring all of that here. So the Summer Palace became the site of buildings that replicated the finest of the architecture found in its diversity all over China. And the Summer Palace became filled with galleries of the finest artwork that the Qinglong Emperor collected and curated and treasured. And he himself wrote vast amounts of poetry and was a great connoisseur of Chinese culture. In addition, he was a conquering emperor, one who expanded the domain of China, because it was during his long reign of 60 years that China reached pretty much the extent of today's China. A great deal of Western China, of the Northwest and Southwest China, and regions in the northern drylands, the places where the steppeland peoples had constantly come and invaded China. And in fact, where the Manchus arrived from the northeast, he was concerned about the potential invaders from the northwest. Those areas were incorporated in China during his rule. Now, on the one side, there was plenty of conquest, and there was plenty of bloodshed, and there was plenty of resentment to China built up during his rule, because this was an era of conquest. But from another perspective, he created something very special about China, that is special about China today, and that is the truly multi-ethnic society. Even during Qianlong's long rule, there was a debate: is China essentially a Han society? That is the Han Chinese culture and the Han Chinese people. Does that define China? Or is China a multi-ethnic society? And he said, and being Manchurian, being a Manchu, he said it with a particular fervor: China is a society that includes many ethnicities. It is not only a Han society, it is a multi-ethnic society. And we can say that today's multi-ethnic China is a multi-ethnic China in significant part because of the long and effective rule of the Qianlong Emperor. Now, his rule was therefore notable for reaching the high state of the Qing dynasty, a period of prosperity, rising population, expanding size, military conquest, the arts, Confucianism, Buddhism, flourishing during the period of the 18th century. This was a period of enormous success in China. But it was also the first glimmerings of the threat that China would come to face in the 19th century. Already by the 17th 1800s, that is the 18th century, the European imperial powers were setting up ports and conquering territories all over Asia. And they were knocking at the door of China, to be sure. And China and the court and the leadership was very wary of what the Europeans might do to subvert power, to divide China, to threaten China's security. And one of the steps that Qianlong took as emperor in 1757 was to establish a controlled trading system in which all trade with the European powers would go through a single port, the port of Canton or Guangzhou. So all trade was to come through one port that could be regulated. This wasn't protectionism per se in the trade sense. It was protection in the security sense. It was already in 1757 an expression of concern that Europe could become a threat to China, even to the Middle Kingdom, even to the vast and rich Qing dynasty. This Canton system, this system of regulation, this system of security for China produced a backlash by the European powers, and especially by the rising power of Europe, Britain, the power that would become the dominant industrial nation of the world in the 19th century. So in 1793, King George III of England sent an emissary, sent an envoy, George Macartney, to Qianlong, to the emperor, to the court, to try to open up trade in a broader way. For the British, the goal was open, free trade. We are the British. We want to trade anywhere we want. The Chinese, of course, were quite wary. What were the British bringing other than threat and the potential of instability? Macartney brought British goods to show what trade could be. In the end, the mission was a failure because Emperor Qianlong declared, "We have what we need. We are a self-contained kingdom. You can trade through the port of Canton, but we are not going to open up special ports for you or special privileges for you. If you ask, the next will ask, the next will ask, the next will ask, and we will effectively lose control of our borders and of our security." The Macartney mission is famous for its failure and in a way famous for its aftermath, because it was a mere 46 years later that Britain returned with a vengeance, not taking no for an answer any longer. Of course, I'm referring to Britain showing up with its steamers and vessels carrying opium by British traders into the ports in Canton and demanding that China open up to British goods, including British opium. And when the Chinese confiscated that opium and dumped it and said, "We do not want an addicted population," Britain retaliated with war. And the war started, the first Opium War, 1839 to 1842, showed how an industrial nation, Britain, could defeat a vast empire, even though the industrial nation was operating with a navy halfway around the world. But with industrial power, Britain defeated the Qing military and in 1842 forced major concessions by the Qing dynasty, by China. One of those concessions was ceding Hong Kong to British control, and other concessions were so-called extraterritorial rights for the British not to be subject to Chinese law, but to the dictates of the British Empire. But that kind of humiliating outcome was to continue because the Europeans demanded more, and they demanded more, and they wanted all of China to open up and to open up on their terms. And not only Britain, but the United States got in line, and France got in line, and other European powers got in line and demanded that China open on European terms. Again, the Qing dynasty felt more and more the unsettled ground underneath them, and the Second Opium War broke out. And that one arrived here because the Second Opium War broke out in 1856, and again, China was routed militarily. But in 1860, the European powers came to the Summer Palace to burn down the Summer Palace and to show the Emperor of China who is who. So this was a sight of humiliating defeat, and the concessions that followed the Second Opium War were even more extensive concessions. This tremendously weakened the Qing dynasty. It fomented more and more internal unrest. This was a time when the declining empire, under threat from abroad, was increasingly facing unrest from within. And indeed, China fell into civil war in the 1850s and 1860s. By some accounts, the most murderous civil war perhaps in world history, 10 or 20 million people dying in what we know as the Taiping Rebellion. Well, the government was able to defeat the rebels in the Taiping Rebellion, but came out from the 1860s in a tremendously weakened state because now the finances were depleted, the military was depleted, the pressures externally were only growing, and they continued to grow as Japan joined the ranks of industrial powers. And as soon as Japan became an industrial power, it began to act as an imperial power as well, challenging China over its rule in parts of China, in today's Taiwan, in the Korean Peninsula, and increasingly in other parts of China. And in the Sino-Japanese War of 1894-95, China lost again. Well, this place again became emblematic of these tremendously building tensions, because in 1900 there was a rebellion and a backlash from below, the so-called Boxer Rebellion, which aimed to throw the foreigners out of China. And of course, the foreigners, with their power now, with their industrial power, with their dominance over a greatly weakened empire, not only resisted, but took actions to suppress the rebellion and to demand various kinds of reparations from the rebels. After the burning of the Summer Palace by Britain in 1860, the problems for China certainly did not go away. Internal rebellion, insurrection, civil war. One of the largest civil wars and most bloody civil wars of history, the Taiping Rebellion, ensued in the 1850s and 1860s. And yet more was to come, because Japan became the first industrial nation of Asia, and upon industrialization, Japan also embarked on imperial adventures, challenging China grabbing parts of Chinese territory and going to war with China in 1894-95 in the Sino-Japanese War, which again China lost. By 1900, there was tremendous unrest, declining empire, threats from outside, internal dissension, and this gave rise to a massive backlash against the foreigners' presence in China, the so-called Boxer Rebellion, a ground-up movement to throw the foreigners out of China. And that, of course, created a reaction by the foreign powers, a very brutal reaction, which brings us back once again to the Summer Palace. Because in 1900, in response to the Boxer Rebellion, an 8-nation alliance, the 8 industrial powers, got together to punish China. Those 8 industrial powers were Britain, of course, the United States, France, Germany, Italy, Russia, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Japan. And the 8 came back to here, once again to burn the buildings and to steal and plunder the collections of the Summer Palace. Yet another infliction of wounds designed to be especially painful and especially humiliating. The Qing dynasty fell with the Chinese Revolution of 1910 and the establishment of the Republic of China beginning in 1912, and more difficulties were to come both internally and externally, especially with the invasion by Japan in the 1930s and war in the 1940s. It was only with the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949 that the fighting ceased, that a unity was recovered, and that the possibility for China's economic development took hold. Now we have seen decades of wonderful economic development and a rise of China, but a remembrance that long remains of that extraordinarily difficult and painful 110 years from 1839, the outbreak of the First Opium War, to 1949, the founding of the People's Republic of China, a period that is called the Century of Humiliation. China won't forget, nor should it, the behavior of the outside industrial countries was despicable, militaristic, arrogant, destructive. And of course, China remembers, but not just China, we should remember as well. Imbalances of power, such as occurred with the early industrialization of Europe and the United States and the relatively earlier industrialization of Japan compared to the rest of Asia, are not a license for plunder or domination or empire. They are an opportunity, in fact, to share the benefits of advanced technologies with the rest of the world. They should be seen as opportunities for human improvement, not opportunities for plunder. I like it here today. It's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's bucolic. It reflects the greatest of China's culture, its arts, its artistic diversity, its ability to construct great man-made projects such as Kunming Lake, an ancient water reservoir for China and an inspiration for today's great waterworks to ensure the adequacy still of the relatively drier northern China by helping to bring some of the water from southern China to northern China through 3 great canals. The work of building the reservoirs here in this beautiful Kunming Lake and this beautiful place in a day of peace. This is how we want to think about the Summer Palace, and this is how we want to think about the years ahead in the 21st century. So we're in a place of history, We're in a place that recalls even the intense clashes that came during the industrial age. And we are here today in a magnificent day in which peace and beauty and this green surrounding reminds us of all of the best and all that we yearn for in a cooperative and peaceful world in the 21st century.